But
One.
once you make a decision, you can call us back and we can set that up.
Basketball fans, welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. You know what this is, unless you've been living under a rock. Like to call it the best, the most entertaining, the most informational, and the most educational basketball content on the planet in the form of a podcast. Be sure to follow along. And the elephant in the room, the word of the 2020 and 2021 almost, I guess, subscribe. Anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. Find it Tate's Take the Podcast, iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify, Red Circle, Stitcher, the whole nine. And be sure to also follow along on social media at Tate's Take Hoops, where basketball lives. So without further ado, because I told quite a few people, we shared this around and kicked some things around, and I have no better person to bring on. It's kind of like a lifelong dream of mine, if you will, to bring this guy on who I've been following for so many years, as you can imagine, up in the East Lansing area. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on and get to him right about now. My good buddy, there he is, Jack Ebling. Man, it's been a little while. I've been waiting almost 36 calendars for this to happen. In the locker room with us, Jack Ebling, Hall of Fame sports writer, radio and TV show host from the Drive with Jack and Press Pass All Stars. Follow him on social media, a little bit of everywhere. At Jack Ebling, at Drive with Jack, at PP_All Stars. Jack, man, how are you? Thanks for joining me, dude.
I am fine, Deshaun, but if this is your lifetime dream, you need better dreams.
Come on, man, cut it out. You guys make sure when you do go and follow Jack, check out his show. He airs it, The Drive with Jack, every Monday through Friday from 3 p.m. until 6 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. And then Press Pass All Stars every Sunday on Fox 47 from 11 p.m. until 12 a.m., which I guess in translation, midnight. I want to get into what we've seen Michigan State do this past week. A 10-point game in terms of a win. They take down two ACC, I guess, powers, one of them for sure, in Notre Dame, an 80-70 10-point win at Jack, ironically enough, Breslin Student Event Center. And then on the road, which surprised quite a few people, that this person included, a 6-point win, 71-66 over Duke. I want to jump into what kind of started this first, getting past the Eastern Michigan win, okay, and going into the game against Notre Dame. What did you see in that game that you really felt like kind of prepared this team for going on the road into Cameron Indoor Stadium, where Tom Izzo started out 0-3?
Well, both of these scores against Notre Dame and Duke maybe a little bit deceiving, Deshaun, because they were up 28 on Notre Dame, and then toward the end, some things slipped away. They had a lot of reserves in the game, but they play a lot of guys anyway, so they should be better than that. And then last night, I don't know how many teams have ever gone from 10 down to 16 up in Cameron, and that was a tremendous performance. I don't think they played particularly well, and Duke played poorly, I thought, but Michigan State made enough plays and once again showed tremendous depth. When someone like Julius Marble, who barely plays in the first two games, can come in and I think turn the game around, that shows what Tom Izzo has to work with.
Yeah, for sure. And Julius Marble being one of those guys, I mean, that one shocked me. There's only been like one or two people, and this was actually last year, my brother being one of them, telling me, hey, Julius Marble is going to be a real player for Michigan State. I mean, I heard some comparisons last night to one of the best bigs and front court players to ever play at Michigan State, being Andre Hudson.
Yeah.
What kind of player do you expect him to be based off of what you saw him do on yesterday? Like, how high is that ceiling and how he fits into what Tom Izzo's system is?
Yeah, I think he can do a lot. I've been impressed by him when he's been here, but he really hasn't had that much of an opportunity. And last year when he would get in, he had a propensity for committing fouls. So he didn't see many minutes. Also, he was playing behind Xavier Tillman, and there were some other people who were taking up minutes. But this year, there's a hole at the five. And even though Thomas Kithier has been starting and we'd seen a lot of Marcus Bingham, I wouldn't be surprised by the end of the year if Julius Marble wasn't playing a lot at the five.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of that as well on yesterday. And what do you think really kind of turn things around? Because me and you were texting last night, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm pissed. I'm feeling away, and this and that. And it's like, hey, Deshaun, what's going on? Don't jump off the ledge. We need you here. And I'm feeling away because I over so many years of watching this team, obviously not as long as you, but they tend to read the names on the front of the jerseys when you're looking up in the band, in the ceiling, and you see all the banners hanging and so forth. And they appeared to look different to me after getting out into transition, and Malik Hall got a dunk through the middle. What was kind of the turning point for you, and what you saw during last night's win?
I think that Hall and Marble together coming in, and as Michigan State couldn't hit a shot. They had 3 baskets and 6 turnovers and 6 fouls. Had a horrible start, but they were hanging around. They were still down 8-6. And then the next thing you know, we had just exchanged about 4 texts, and it's halftime, and they're up 4. So, it's hard to be too mad at that. And I'm sure it would have made some difference if the students had been there at Duke. But this doesn't look like a vintage Duke team to me either.
For sure. And one of the more impressive things, I think, I've been very open about some of my frustration with Foster Lawyer and calling him fraudster and all this other stuff. I sent you a text yesterday, and this is kind of the way that I feel. I've been waiting for him to kind of play with that mentality of, hey, one of these days you guys are going to stop disrespecting me. You're going to start respecting my jump shot and realizing that I'm a leader. But I think the problem that maybe me included sometimes have is that comparing his leadership qualities or abilities to other guys that former point guards that play at Michigan State. What were you impressed by from Foster Lawyer yesterday, although he may not have necessarily filled up the stat sheet the way he did against Eastern Michigan?
Yeah, I thought his 3-pointer from the wing was as critical as any basket in the game. And then I thought he studied him a little bit. He's so low to the ground that it's hard to take the ball away from him sometimes if you can't have direct pressure. But if you let him dribble around, he can get to the foul line. He actually missed 2 free throws. And that's unusual, Deshaun, because he has the second longest streak in competitive basketball in the United States. High school, college, or pro. When he was at Clarkston, he made 119 in a row. And that is 6 shy of the national record, but it's longer than any record that has ever been set in high school or in the NBA, in college or in the NBA. There was a high school player in Florida who made 125 in a row.
119 consecutive. I could think of some things that I can do. You could probably run all kind of errands if you're sitting there and waiting on Tom Izzo and Foster Lawyer sitting at the charity stripe, because that's kind of been Tom Izzo's thing for the longest. Jack Ebling joining us. Hall of Fame sportswriter, radio, TV show host. The Drive with Jack, make sure you go and check that out. Also, Press Pass All Stars, the TV show, every Sunday night at 11 p. Remember to follow him on social media as well. Now, one of the questions that I proposed to you when we were at the game, watching the Notre Dame game live, is who is that emotional or that vocal leader for this team? I'm not even really sure that it's becoming more clear. If anything, I feel like it's becoming more clear that it's going to be by committee or collectively as a unit. We've seen Aaron Henry being more vocal. I love that. Foster Lawyer was in some of those huddles, and even during I think a foul shot or something along those lines, I saw Josh Langford kind of telling the guys to come here, getting in a huddle on the floor. Who do you think, obviously not putting a gun to your head or anything, but who do you think that player is, or does a player like that have to exist for this team to be successful?
Well, I think you nailed it. It's probably by committee, certainly in terms of longevity and respect. It's hard to top what Josh Langford is right now for this team. And I think it's hard to say that Foster Lawyer is going to have that kind of impact if he's not on the floor. And looks like Rocket Watts is going to be on the floor more than he is at the point. But I think Aaron Henry now has evolved, and he came in and he was always energetic, but he was a little immature sometimes, and I don't know, the players really took him seriously. I think now it could be his team, not only as its best player, but also as its best leader.
For what I believe is his second consecutive game with a double-double is where you have a guy like Joey Hauser, who unfortunately had to sit out last year. And I know that Izzo was, had smoke coming out of his nose, kind of looked like a Chicago Bulls logo to an extent last year with him not being able to be eligible. But seeing him putting up these double-doubles against quality teams, better than average teams, is this something that we can come to expect when he's, continues to start getting more acclimated into what Izzo wants to do?
Yeah, I think you're going to see him be a consistent performer. I don't know that he's going to have 16 rebounds every night, but I think he's going to be a solid guy, somebody who's very versatile. And once again, the key words to this team, Deshaun, are versatility and depth. You have a lot of guys who can play multiple positions, who can defend multiple positions. And I think in this COVID-19 craziness, it's going to help if you have 8, 9, 10 players. Michigan State thinks that it has 12 players that it doesn't mind having on the floor at any time. Maybe the exception will be A.J. Hoggard, but everyone else in uniform for Michigan State on scholarship would start for a lot of teams.
Saw some really good things over the course of the last week or two from A.J. Hoggard, who's a freshman point guard at Michigan State, as well as Matty Sissoko, whenever he's not volleyballing shots all the way up onto the concession stands. Let me ask you this, though, Jack, in regards to moving forward. Obviously, up next is University of Detroit Mercy. Antoine Davis being a guy who is one of the most prolific scorers in college basketball right now. Obviously, everybody knows his dad. Following that will be Western Michigan. Then the big one. Okay, we've got Virginia, the Hauser Bowl, if you will, on the road. What things have you seen in the last two games that makes you say, you know what, we've got these two other games to prep, or us for Virginia to an extent, obviously not overlooking them, but we need to kind of sharpen up in these particular areas before we get to Virginia. What are those areas?
Tom Izzo looks at these games a little differently from most of us, and certainly different from the fans. He sees the big picture. And the idea is that if you lose a game in November and December, the fans go crazy, but it doesn't mean much. And if they lose to Virginia, if they beat Virginia, I don't think it's going to change his outlook much, other than the fact that if Michigan State could get a win in Charlottesville, it would have a chance to claim the ACC and Big Ten championships with the win over Notre Dame, the win over Duke. And if it can beat Virginia, I would think it would certainly be in the top 5 in the poll. It might be there anyway. And when you look at what has happened to some other teams that were highly ranked and the losses, I don't think anyone thought Kentucky, would be playing the way it is. I guess could have won the game last night, but we've seen Virginia, Villanova, a lot of teams have lost. So for Michigan State, if it can run its record to 6-0 at that point in a 7-game pre-conference season, that would be a good indication, but by no means is that the measuring stick, Deshaun. For Tom Izzo, it's still hanging banners. It's still championships. And to do that, to win another Big Ten championship, that would be number 11. And that would tie Bob Knight and Piggy Lambert for the most in history. But to do that, you could have a Big Ten tournament semifinal that would be every bit as good as the Final Four. You look at where Iowa and Wisconsin are. Illinois is certainly capable of getting to the Final Four. And then you have Michigan State, and Ohio State is dangerous. There are probably 9 teams in the Big Ten that could make the Sweet 16.
Very unlikely, but keeping our fingers crossed, toes crossed, eyes crossed, a little bit of everything crossed, that maybe we can see a all Big Ten Final Four at one of these points. Who knows what's going to happen there? As you guys can see, I'm ear to ear, and that's for a really good reason. Got my guy Jack Ebling in here with me, who I still have so many of his newspaper articles from Lansing State Journal thumbtacked on my mom's wall. I'm sure she's really upset the time that she has to move. I'm sure I'm going to have to fly up there and help her fill so many of those thumbtack holes, whatever that point may be. But really excited to have you here with us, Jack, and obviously don't want to take up too much of your time. And so what I do want to do is I want to bring you into one of our special segments that we always conclude the show with,
All right.
called quick release. And it is essentially something similar to like a rapid fire style, one word answer. If you will want to elaborate a little bit, that's fine. Yes or no, whatever, what have you. So my first question for you, Jack, is if one guy had to be in the starting lineup for as the point guard, would that be Rocket Watts? Would that be Foster Lawyer or someone else?
Can I say Magic Johnson? No.
You can say Magic Johnson. You can say whatever you want to say.
Michigan State, I guess, could make the claim it's point guard if you want to go back that far, and how many great players Michigan State's had. But to answer your question in one word, I want to say Rocket Lawyer.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. Okay, we can do that one. Let's say, how many games does Michigan State? What is Michigan State's roundabout record? How many losses do you see for Michigan State going into the NCAA tournament? Again, hoping that we get to that point in Indianapolis.
I would say 5. Let me say 23 or 24 and 3, something like that. Maybe 4 losses and then a loss in the Big Ten tournament. So somewhere around 25 and 5.
Can you, assuming that Michigan State comes away with a win against U of D and of course Western Michigan as well, can you give us a score prediction, knowing that Virginia loves that defense? Give us a score prediction for the game on December 9th in the ACC Big Ten Challenge for Michigan State on the road.
I'll say Joey Hauser 61, Sam Hauser 60.
Okay. That sounds good to me, especially wearing my green and all the nice fancy looking stuff in the background. Let's go with, how surprised are you that we haven't heard LeVar Ball speak very much since the NBA draft or even leading up to?
My one word would be laryngitis. That's the only thing that could keep him quiet.
Man, I appreciate you so much, Jack. I do want to ask you this very last thing on your way out is I'm not really sure how much you've had a opportunity to speak with Tom Izzo since last night's game. I know you guys are obviously very close. I saw some notifications pop up earlier. So we're not treating this like it's an asterisk. It's a win.
Sure.
Fans or no fans. What has that conversation been like, or what type of mood or whatever, what have you, in terms of those conversations, if you've had any with Tom Izzo since last night's win? Yeah,
he's happy with the win. It's his first regular season win over Mike Krzyzewski. When Michigan State has played Duke in the Elite Eight, the Spartans were 2-0, but any other time hadn't been successful. So happy to have a win, happy to have a road win, happy to see the team take another stride, but by no means was this the goal for 2020-21.
Are we going to see Imani Bates in a Michigan State uniform?
I think so.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's going to be next season or the season after, but I'm pretty convinced that he wants to play college basketball and he really wants to be at Michigan State. I've been seeing him in the locker room for 3-4 years. So I would be very surprised if he didn't want to give this a shot.
Name, image, and likeness maybe even becoming a part of some of his decision making as well. And I'm sure that Duke's not really looking forward to that return game against Michigan State after what happened last night. Jack Ebling, thank you so much for coming on the show and joining us, man. It means everything to me, as I'm sure you can imagine. Remember to follow Jack on Drive with Jack, the radio show, Monday through Friday from 3P to 6P. Press Pass All-Stars that airs on Fox 47, local Lansing TV, from 11P until 12A, which you can also even stream that even. So if you're not in the local area of Lansing, you can check that out there too. And follow him on all social media accounts. Jack, thank you so much for joining us, man. I can't wait to have you back on again at some point. Thank you so much for bringing me on your television show this past Sunday.
Yeah, I was going to say the radio and television shows are always better with Tate on it. And that's every Tuesday at 4:05. and then television whenever we can afford them.
Oh my goodness, you're too much, man. You might have oversold it just a tad. Jack Ebling, everybody. Jack, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, that was Jack Ebling, man, a good buddy of mine, good friend who's done so much for me since we met over in Chicago. I believe the last I want to say 3 years ago. I want to say 2017. And I mean, this dude, every time I'm around him, is just kind of, I take it back to when there's very few people. Okay, let me just remind the people of that. It takes me back to when I was working down on the field for the Atlanta Falcons. And I mean this sincerely, genuinely, and very seriously. Obviously, growing up as a big Michigan State fan and reading everything all the time. But there's certain people that you're around and they mean so much, whether it's iconic figures or whether just regular everyday people. It could be your mom, it could be your dad, your brother, your best friend, your kid, whoever, whatever, what have you. But just being in this business for the time that I have and working with so many great personalities and so forth, having the opportunity to do that with the people that you actually grew up reading their content and every day, and watching them on television and doing all these things and just thinking, man, it would be so awesome to be blessed with the opportunity to actually work with these people. It kind of takes me back to I forget what year it was, but the Patriots came in town. They played the Atlanta Falcons. And I know Jack will probably think I'm crazy for making this comparison, but I remember when Tom Brady came running out of the locker room. And I tell this story to people all the time, just to know that Tom Brady, like, you could feel the energy. You knew you were around greatness, like that aura, just like as if there was something in the air almost. You knew that you were around greatness. And that happens not necessarily all that often, but it does happen from time to time working in this business. And I share that because every time that I have an opportunity to do some radio stuff, again, like Jack said, on the Drive with Jack every Tuesday afternoon from at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, it just kind of puts me back in that mode. Just being a little kid and seeing, oh man, that's got to be pretty cool. You get to do all these things with Michigan State and interviewing players and knowing Magic Johnson and Tom Izzo, the head coach, and blah, blah, blah. And just being somebody growing up as a kid that not necessarily idolized, but just always thought that it was like a dream come true to be able to have those types of opportunities. Now to be able to have them as a grown ass man, as an adult, I think it's pretty cool. And I hope that you guys do too. And that was Jack Ebling. And again, I appreciate everybody that had the opportunity to come and check in with us as we kind of recapped the Michigan State win earlier this week against Notre Dame, and overly thankful and grateful for the people up in East Lansing, Matthew Larson, amongst some others, in the PR department and front office that blessed me with an opportunity to go and report on the game and work that game when I thought it was going to be much longer before I had that opportunity because of COVID and everything else. So big, huge, special thanks to them. Special thanks to Jack Ebling for coming on as well. And even for a couple of the people that came in today on the show and wanted to show some love. One of them being Todd Corder. What's up, TC? MSU playing a tough non-conference schedule is going to benefit them in the Big Ten season and the NCAA tournament. Kind of sounds like the typical Tom Izzo team. Appreciate Tom, TC, for checking in with us. And of course, my dude, Rob H, man, gave me this really awesome, what side are we on? We're on this side. This really awesome autographed basketball by Rob Hamilton himself. And I'm overly thankful for that because I've been trying to juice up a little bit of my my background work here a little bit and got some more things that I want to add and put to it. But that was my very first gift, was that basketball. And I'm just thankful for really good friends and former colleagues, lifetime friends, for people like Rob Hamilton telling people to make sure you go and subscribe, letting the people also know that it is extremely, extremely worth it. And you can see there on his avatar or his profile picture, what appears to be his lovely wife from here. You can see the blue square with the white circle around it and the blue F in the middle. That stands for Facebook, unless you've been living under a rock. And by that, it's letting you know that we subscribe. That we stream live on YouTube as well as on Facebook, and to where you can subscribe anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. That's iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Red Circle, Stitcher, all of the above, and everything and anything in between that. Drop us a rating. You get up to 5 stars, hopefully closer to 5 than it is 1. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to also leave a little bit of a review on what you think about the podcast. You never know who you're going to get here as a guest here on the podcast. We've had some really awesome guests. Obviously, one of them today. We're going to have some really good ones going forward for the duration of not only the college basketball season, but also high school basketball and even on the NBA level as well. So just want to remind you guys to make sure you do that, and be sure to subscribe on YouTube as well, where you can see the video portion of this too. So share with a friend, share with a family member, an enemy, the mamas, the grandmamas, anybody that loves basketball, because we don't just talk Michigan State. We don't just talk Pistons. I mean, we talk any and everything. As long as it's 94 feet long and 50 feet wide, we're talking about it right here on Tate's Take. So if you know somebody that loves basketball, just a couple seconds out of your day. I promise you it's less than 30 seconds unless you got lazy thumbs. Shoot it on over there to some of the people that you know love some hoops, and I hope that they'll get a chance to enjoy it. For everybody that has subscribed so far and that will subscribe in the future, I thank you very much for just assisting a young man's dreams and coming true to be able to push this product called Tate's Take. # where basketball lives. See you guys in a few.